The Trump administration is locked in a new legal battle with a federal judge, this time over the weekend deportation flights, sending Venezuelan migrants not back to their own country, but to a mega prison in El Salvador. This happened despite a judge's order to turn those planes around. The White House claiming it had the right under the Alien Enemies Act of 1798, which was last invoked during World War II, when it was used to incarcerate thousands of people with Japanese heritage right here in the Northwest and around the country. A federal judge immediately blocked the president's proclamation and ordered those planes be turned around, returning to the U.S. immediately. That did not happen. The White House quickly appealing the judge's order, claiming it was issued after the planes were in the air.
This is a time of war. They invaded our country. So this isn't, in that sense, this is war.
And joining us now live to discuss is Republican Rob McKenna, King 5 political analyst and former Washington State Attorney General. Rob, it's been a bit of time. Good to see you.
Good to see you too, Joyce.
I want your reaction first to the president deporting hundreds of migrants despite the federal judge's ruling, barring it, and him ordering those planes to turn around.
Well, the administration is claiming that the planes were in the air and these people already left the country by the time the judge issued his order. The judge has asked for more information about when the planes left, apparently, although that does raise the question of whether the planes could have been turned around or not, I suppose. So we'll see if this really amounts to defying the court's order or if the deportations are already underway when the order came down. The use of this act is, as you pointed out, unusual, but it has been used since World War II was underway. It was used after World War II by President Truman because he decided he needed to use it for certain aliens even after the war had ended for a period of time, and that was upheld by the U.S. Supreme Court. So the main question here is, in the absence of a declared war, and as you know, to be clear, this law was put into effect by Congress when they thought they were going to have a war with France, which didn't materialize. It raises interesting questions, important questions that the appellate courts are going to have to grapple with, and I'm sure this is another case that's going to the U.S. Supreme Court, and they'll have to weigh in.
And when you bring up the Alien Enemies Act, doesn't it have checks and balances? Doesn't Congress have to be involved in declaring this a time of war? Is Trump operating above the law as we know it?
Yeah, that's the way the law has been understood. But the Supreme Court, in a case that was handed down in the 1940s, granted the president a great deal of discretion on how to use it, and granted President Truman a great deal of discretion. So it's not cut and dried. I think that the current Supreme Court will have to take a look at it. The other thing about anything the Supreme Court does is that a later Supreme Court can change it. So we'll see how the current Supreme Court interprets the law, Congress's role in it, and the president's power under it. We'll also look at the facts, or the courts will look at the facts as to whether or not this order was defied, because you have two questions here. One is, can the president in these circumstances use the Alien Enemies Act? But secondly, when a federal judge ruled that these deportations needed to be put on hold, did the administration defy the court? And are there consequences for that if they, in fact, defied a standing court order? So I think those are both questions we're going to hear a lot about in the next several days.
I have 1 minute left and two questions. The first has to do with due process for migrants in this country, even those that are deemed to be criminals. Does it exist when we see them deporting migrants, some of whom did not have due process on some of these flights?
It's not clear there was due process for the individuals who are accused of being gang members. So I think that's going to be studied and going to be litigated. For migrants generally, we have a system. When they come in, they ask for asylum, they're released to sponsors in the country, and then they have to show up for their hearings. And that happens, and that's due process. They come to a court hearing. Unfortunately, not all of them have lawyers, and that's a problem. But there is due process for legal migrants who are not criminals. Whether the ones who are accused of being criminals are receiving those rights is a separate question. I think it's going to have to be looked at really carefully.
And as we look at this video that was released of these migrants arriving in El Salvador, they haven't been tried, and so they seem to be treated like criminals.
Yeah.
The visuals are horrific to some of us. Finally, a judge. What is a judge supposed to do if it's determined that the president is defying a court order? What are the options?
Well, the judge, when you defy a court order, you open yourself up to charges of contempt of court. That can result in jail time. I don't know that that would apply to the president in this case, but did the officers who carried out the deportations expose themselves to contempt of court if they knew they were under that order? So it is not just the president who can be in contempt of court, but anyone executing an act that a court had prohibited could be.
Much to do on this still, so we'll talk with you in the days ahead. Rob McKenna, we're out of time. Thank you so much. Good to see you.
Good to see you, Joyce. Thanks.